Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. We hear testimonies from more witnesses participating in the National Citizens Inquiry into the COVID-19 pandemic, which continues in Saskatoon. The strike by 155,000 federal workers is impacting many industries in Canada, including our agriculture sector. We have the details. And the province made a huge funding announcement to support Albertans with developmental disabilities.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The National Citizens Inquiry into the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic continued in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. The initiative, which is being run by everyday Canadians, examines the impact of the government lockdowns, the virus, and the COVID-19 vaccines over the past couple of years. Testimonies are being heard from many in the healthcare sector, along with legal experts. Dr. Maria Gucci is an academic pharmacist and researcher who's completed reports for the Canadian Pharmacists Association. Now, she was asked about the quality of the COVID-19 vaccines, including a story reported by Reuters in 2021 about a slip-up with the Moderna vaccine.
A bunch of doses were sent to Japan, and they had stainless steel particles you could see with your eye in them. And they should never have left the factory floor. It seems to me, and this is just my impression, that the batch standards were lowered so that basically anything that came out of the factory was acceptable, so that there would be very few batches that would be turned away. That's the way it looked like to me, that any batch was going to be accepted.
The National Citizens Inquiry wraps up in Saskatoon tomorrow before making its way to Red Deer April 26th through the 28th. It'll then head off to Vancouver, Quebec City, and Ottawa next month. The federal worker strike continues at 250 locations across Canada. Around 155,000 employees have walked off the job, demanding a 13.5% raise over 3 years, and some are wanting to make work-from-home measures permanent. The strike by PSAC members is impacting many industries, including our agriculture sector. Around 65% of Canadian Grain Commission employees, including staff who look after outward inspection on grain shipments, are on strike. Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada says the strike will disrupt delivery of a wide range of federal programs and services, including Agri-Invest, Agri-Stability, and the Poultry and Egg On-Farm Investment Program. Canadian Wheat Growers Association, a farm advocacy group, say they're concerned with the potential long haul of the PSAC strike. Employees with the Canadian Grain Commission are on strike, and this means there are no inspections taking place with wheat exports.
All our grain that gets exported, and that is up to about 80% of what we grow, gets exported out of Canada, and that needs to be inspected by the Canadian Grain Commission. And if there's no inspections, there's no vessel loading, there's no exports, and then the whole supply chain backs up from port right through the country elevators back to the farm.
The strike is now in its third day. Yoakum says there's the potential of private inspectors to look over the wheat as an alternative. Alberta's official opposition says the company that provides community laboratory services in Alberta is drastically understaffed. The NDP says Dynalife currently has 200 empty positions. Staff have also allegedly walked away from bargaining with some of their employees. Alberta NDP health critic David Shepherd says healthcare in our province is still in crisis.
Albertans like one man with reduced kidney function who needs to have his blood drawn and monitored regularly, but is facing a 3-week wait. Or the patient who waited 6 weeks for an appointment and arrived to find a waiting room packed well over capacity, posing concerns about both viral transmission and fire safety. That Albertans are waiting weeks and yes, sometimes months to get basic blood work done is another clear and disastrous result of the UCP's mishandling of our healthcare system.
A Calgary-based OBGYN posted on social media that he was helping to cover shifts in Lethbridge because of our lack of doctors. The post was seen by NDP Lethbridge West candidate Shannon Phillips. Phillips says she's very grateful that physicians can come down to help out, but things need to change in our healthcare sector.
for about a year. Last year, about this time, we had 7 OBGYNs here in Lethbridge, and now we have 1. And over the course of the last year, it's become an increasing crisis that we began hearing about just over a year ago. Instead of having a plan to invest in specific clinics to make sure that we can train, attract, and retain frontline healthcare workers, Danielle Smith chose to come to Lethbridge last week and tell pregnant women that they should drive up to Calgary. The fact of the matter is that's an insult to the people of Lethbridge.
Phillips says Albertans can trust the NDP with healthcare, and they plan to end the chaos if they're elected as the next government. Well, the Alberta election is coming up on May the 29th. Shannon Phillips' biggest competition next month appears to be the UCP candidate for Lethbridge West, Cheryl Seaborn. Seaborn is a business owner for 25 years and a registered nurse here in our region. She recently chatted with Bridge City News about the healthcare worker shortage here in Alberta. Seaborn says more help is on the way.
We have 700 doctors coming in. We have 1,800 other allied health professionals that are coming in to Alberta, and that will greatly impact the accessibility of physicians to our constituents. And we need to continue to pursue that. We're opening up extra seats in the university here for nurses. I know that that's happening across Alberta as well. All of those things are pieces to a puzzle. Some things are immediate, some things are going to take time, but I certainly feel that I have, a little bit of the inside scoop on what's been going on over the last number of years and have something to offer in that way for people.
Make sure you catch the full interview with UCP Lethbridge West candidate Cheryl Seaborn and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up in the second half of our program. The Alberta government announced new funding to support Albertans with developmental disabilities. Social Services Minister Jeremy Nixon says $240 million will be going to support those on the Persons with Developmental Disabilities wait list.
This funding will go into Alberta's disability sector to help connect more individuals with support, bring more staff online, and address the challenges that we are seeing here today. In fact, we're anticipating that around 500 individuals who have been waiting for services will be able to access supports within the first year. We are so grateful for the collaboration that we have had with the disability service providers like IRSA and so many others across this province that do incredible work.
Alberta's Advanced Education Minister, Dimitrios Nicolaides, announced new support and mental health research for our province's soldiers and veterans. Nicolaides says more than $3 million over the next 5 years will go into providing vital mental health research. The funding will support the HIMARC program at the University of Alberta. HIMARC stands for Heroes in Mind Advocacy and Research Consortium.
Our government has emphasized the importance of mental health, and it is no secret that our military service members and first responders undergo significant stress during their service. In 2019, a survey found that 24% of Canadian veterans reported symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is an increasingly complicated condition, and 2/3 of veterans with PTSD continue to struggle after receiving traditional therapy, such as medication or counseling. HIMARC, however, is working to make a difference by researching and offering 3MDR, a groundbreaking intervention for combat-related treatment-resistant PTSD.
Well, the cooler temperatures for our region will soon be a thing of the past. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early look at the forecast. Jeanette, many in Lethbridge have been praying for more sunshine and warmer temperatures, and those prayers should finally be answered this weekend?
Oh, they certainly should be, because today's daytime high, it's going to triple by tomorrow. Now, this evening, we're still looking at that overnight low of -8, and we could see a slight chance of flurries as well with that, and a wind chill value of -13. Now, as we get into Saturday, though, that temperature going to climb all the way up to 12 degrees. We're going to see mainly sunny skies and then a mix of sun and cloud by the afternoon, and only a 20 wind from the southeast. And into next week, we're going to see mainly teen temperatures. I will be back later in the show to give you all those details.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Lethbridge has one of the highest child poverty rates in Canada. That's according to a new report presented by Andrew Malcolm, General Manager of our city's Community Social Development Department. According to the study, 30% of households live on less than $49,000 a year. The average household income in Lethbridge is $35,000 less than the provincial average. The median household income is just under $78,000, which is lower than the provincial median average of just under $99,000. The report also noted that the number of homeless in our city increased by 150% since 2016, and substance abuse continues to be a major issue here in Lethbridge. Chances are, if you've driven through Fort Macleod, you've seen the iconic American Hotel. It's been closed for many years now, but was apparently quite the hotspot for police surveillance during its time. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains now, the museum has opened up a new exhibit in honor of the historical landmark called Contact Zone, the American Hotel. Fort Macleod residents remember it for its so-called hauntings.
She wasn't expecting, I think, to find as many ghost stories as she did.
Those ghoulish tales make up a vast part of the exhibit that was completed by Riley Jelinek as a master's project for her studies at the University of Lethbridge. She interviewed over a dozen Indigenous, settler, and former owners of the hotel for her work. Dr. Christine Alexander, an associate professor of history at the University of Lethbridge, said that during the interviews that Jelinek conducted, there was always a constant theme of an unusually scary tale that took place at the hotel.
It's become sort of a central part of what she argues in her thesis, and she discusses it in this exhibit as well, that we need to, that I think thinking about the idea of a contact zone, and this is what this hotel was a space where Indigenous and settler folks met each other, grappled with each other, and where ideas about, sometimes racist ideas were articulated, reinforced, but also contested. I think that it is haunted, and it's haunting.
Tyler Stewart, the curator for the Galt Museum and Archives, told us the American Hotel was seen as somewhat of a gathering place for Indigenous peoples in a largely white town. But as ownership changed, it affected who was allowed inside. Throughout the years, it was also the site of barroom brawls and violence. Stewart says the whole project is told through the voices of those who lived the stories of the American Hotel.
Rather than Riley's perspective as the curator so much. So I think she did a great job of that. I look forward to reading her full master's thesis paper that will accompany this exhibition.
Staff from the Galt Museum told us you can view the exhibit and get a better understanding of the history of the American Hotel until October 8th. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Police in the Peel region in Ontario say millions of dollars worth of gold and other high-value items were stolen from the Pearson Airport in Mississauga. They say they're investigating the theft, which took place after a plane that arrived at the airport was unloaded and its cargo was transported to a holding facility.
This high-value container was removed by illegal means from the holding facility. This cargo was reported missing to the Peel Regional Police a short time later. An investigation has commenced. What I can say is that the container contained a high-value shipment. It did contain gold, but was not exclusive to gold and contained other items of monetary value. The total worth estimated at this time in our investigation for the property is estimated at just over $20 million.
Canada's premiers and police chiefs took part in a virtual meeting earlier today on amending federal laws, including bail reform. The premiers have also been calling on Ottawa to renew and enhance its gun and gang violence action fund, which supports provincial and territorial public safety initiatives. The meeting also included a discussion on broader public safety measures. Nick Nurse has been fired as the head coach of the Toronto Raptors, Canada's only NBA team. The team's president, Masai Ujiri, addressed the fact that his club didn't make the playoffs this season, saying it was a very disappointing season and they wanted to gain momentum back as a franchise. Nurse had been the head coach of the Raptors for the past 5 seasons, leading them to the NBA championship just 4 years ago. He also won Coach of the Year while in Toronto. Nick Nurse leaves the team with a record of 227 and 163. Mark Stone scored twice to lead the Vegas Golden Knights to a 5-2 win over the Winnipeg Jets, tying their best-of-7 affair at a game apiece. Jets players say both teams are evenly matched, and this is going to be a fairly tight series.
Yeah, I think they were a little more aggressive, but, so give them some credit. I think, our execution could be better. I don't think we played poorly by any means, but, it's 2 really good hockey teams. We knew this was going to be a tight series. We felt confident going in it. I don't think anyone was expecting a sweep. So, I think we controlled the first, they controlled the second. And, a couple bounces here or there. It was a tight game. So you give them credit; they played better than they did game one, and we'll make some adjustments and be ready for game three.
They started to take it to us a little bit in the second, and we let them start to dictate the game, and that's they're a good team. So you got to give them credit. They were honest. They made some good plays, and we gotta try to limit the amount of time we let them be in our zone, and limit those chances and get back to our game as quick as we can.
Good luck going out to the Jets, the Leafs, and the Oilers in the NHL playoffs. Well, we experienced a few more light flurries today and slightly cooler in southwestern Alberta, but fortunately, the mercury is going up by quite a bit and a beautiful weekend is shaping up. Complete weather details are on deck. The average high for this time of year for Lethbridge is around 14 degrees. We were certainly well below that today. Jeanette Roche is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, it appears as though much warmer air is on the way with a lovely weekend shaping up.
It sure is. We just have to get through this evening. We are expecting those overnight flurries as well as a overnight low of -8. So going to be a bit chilly. But into Saturday, that temperature climbing all the way up to 12 degrees, mainly sunny skies. That sunshine sticking around into Sunday. 14 for a high, all the way up to 17 on Monday. Clear skies on Tuesday with a high of 15 degrees, all the way up to 18 on Wednesday. And then rounding out our 7-day forecast on Thursday, a high of 14 degrees, which, by the way, is the average high for this time of year. There it is right there. 0 is the low. 25, that was a high temperature on this day back in 1994. And in 1967, we were sitting at a chilly -16. Sun rose this morning at 6:27, and this evening we're looking at 8:34 for the sunset, giving us 14 hours and 7 minutes. Okay, looking to the west coast tomorrow, going to be a bit of a wet one. 60% chance of showers expected in Victoria tomorrow, high of 9 degrees. 10 for a high in Vancouver, looking at 40% chance of showers and some afternoon drizzle as well. 11 for a high in Edmonton, 10 the high expected in Calgary tomorrow. Mainly sunny across Alberta tomorrow. Calgary could see that mix of sun and cloud by the afternoon. A bit of a windy one for our prairie cities tomorrow, up to 40 winds in both Saskatoon and Regina. Saskatoon rather, sitting at 6 degrees with sunny skies, a mix of sun and cloud expected in Regina, 2 for a high, and 6 for a high in Winnipeg. Sunshine, but could see up to 60 winds there. So a little bit of a windy one in Winnipeg. Heavy rains expected tomorrow in Toronto, looking at 10 to 20 millimeters of rainfall. 11 for a high there, 23 the high in Ottawa. Also looking at 10 to 15 millimeters of rain. Beautiful day in Montreal tomorrow, though, clear skies and a high of 21. Should see fairly sunny conditions as well across most of the Maritimes. We're looking at Fredericton with a high of 14 degrees, 13 for a high in Halifax, 8 in Charlottetown, and in St. John's, Newfoundland, looking at only a high of 3 degrees. Could also see 2 to 4 millimeters of rainfall, and it could be mixed with some snow and some drizzle as well. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced details of a new agreement with Volkswagen to build its North American electric vehicle battery plant in Ontario. Trudeau says the automaker's contract with Canada includes an upfront capital investment of $700 million and production subsidies for every battery the company makes and sells. That amounts to close to $13 billion over the next 10 years.
So I don't have to tell anyone here why it matters that Canada secured this deal to build a massive electric vehicle battery factory in St. Thomas. With this historic project, we're not just bringing back manufacturing. We're bringing back a strong, thriving economy for this community, and we're delivering a national anchor for Canada's electric vehicle supply chain.
The plant is expected to create around 3,000 jobs for the region. Former federal industry minister Navdeep Bains is now part of the executive team at Rogers Communications. The company announced that Bains is the new chief corporate affairs officer, which is one of the several new appointments to its leadership team. Bains served in Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet as industry minister from 2015 to 2021 when he chose not to run for re-election. There's a unique way that many industries are doing business in Canada these days. It is called barter pay. John Porter with Barter Pay gives us an example of how it actually works.
So we've had like a restaurant in Hamilton, for example, was looking for a new sign for their restaurant. And they went out and got a few quotes. they all came in around $5,000, right? And normally before they met barter pay, they would have just chosen a quote, wrote the check for $5,000, and that it kind of ends there. But instead, they made the smart choice to join barter pay. We ended up selling off about $5,000 worth of their gift cards out to our network within the first couple of weeks. So they banked up $5,000 in barter credits, and then they used those barter credits with a sign company in Burlington to replace that cash expenditure. So essentially, instead of it, $5,000 cash leaving the bank to get their sign, it was only $5,000 worth of gift cards that represents new business incrementally coming back in their door at their food cost, which is like 30-40 cents on the dollar.
John Porter will have more on what barter pay is all about coming up after business news. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 62 points on the day to finish at 20,693. The Dow was up 22 points to 33,808. The S&P 500 was up 3 points on the day to 4133, and the Nasdaq was up 12 points to 12,072. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 50 cents to 77.87 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 4 cents to 2.21 US. Gold was down 22.15 on the day to 1982.66 US an ounce, and silver was down 21 cents to 25.09 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.29 per bushel, barley's at $9.14, canola's at $16.98, and corn is at $10.44 per bushel. Live cattle were down 13 cents to $173.98. Feeder cattle were down $1.25 to $203.78. And lean hogs May contract was up 20 cents to 77.03. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.86 US. Recapping one of our top stories, the Alberta government announced new funding to support Albertans with developmental disabilities. Seniors, Community and Social Services Minister Jeremy Nixon says $240 million will be going to support those on the Persons with Developmental Disabilities waitlist. The Alberta election is just over a month away now. Coming up shortly, BCN's Jeanette Rocher will chat with UCP Lethbridge West candidate Cheryl Seaborn to see what she brings to the table and where she stands on a wide range of issues. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. Saturday is Earth Day, and the City of Lethbridge is providing a way to keep harmful items out of the landfill. So on April 22nd, residents can drop off unused household cleaning supplies, solvents, oil, paint, and old electronics for free between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at the NMAC Center. The Toxic and E-Waste Roundup is for residential household hazardous waste and electronic waste only. For more information, visit lethbridge.ca or call 311. Big Brothers Big Sisters in Lethbridge is looking for volunteers to mentor children and youth in their various programs. Volunteers commit to one visit per week for 1 year. They have many kids that are looking for a big brother or sister. Make a difference in a child's life and start something big. To apply, visit lethbridge.bigbrothersbigsisters.ca or for more information, call 403-328-9355. And that's today's Bridge City News community calendar.
As Albertans wait for May 29th to arrive, the election for many has already begun. Cheryl Seaborn is the UCP candidate for West Lethbridge, and she joins me to talk about her plans for her campaign and what she'll do if she's chosen by the people of West Lethbridge to represent them in the legislature. Cheryl Seaborn, welcome to Bridge City News.
How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am good, thank you.
Okay, so Cheryl, you're a longtime resident of Lethbridge. So what was the motivating factor for you to step up and be the UCP candidate for West Lethbridge?
Well, I think that the people of West Lethbridge are ready for some positive change. I know that I've said that before. I think that they are looking forward to more broad representation as a group of constituents. And I'm excited to offer that to them and be that positive change for them moving forward.
Okay, well, you'd mentioned you've never done anything like this before, but you'll be running against NDP candidate Shannon Phillips, who's been in that position for a long time now. So what do you feel sets you apart from her?
For sure. Well, I think the fact that I want to work with all of the constituents of Lethbridge West. I want to hear what everyone has to say and represent everyone at the legislature. You know, I could sit in a room and sit around a table with like-minded people and never come up with the best ideas. But when you get into a room with people with different perspectives, different lived experience, whether they voted for you or didn't vote for you, it doesn't really matter. That's when you come up with the best, most innovative thoughts and ideas, and you're able to better meet the needs of the entire constituency. And those are the things that I want to do for Lethbridge West.
Okay, well, one of the hot button topics in this election is healthcare. Of course, everyone's talking about it, particularly the doctor shortage here in Lethbridge. So you yourself spent your career working in healthcare. So how do you think that experience will help you as an MLA?
Yeah, well, for sure. It gives me a historical perspective. A physician shortage in Lethbridge is nothing new. It's not new with the UCP. It existed prior to the UCP coming here. It exists. Actually, I was in a meeting yesterday with some AHS folk, and they talked about how, you know, a physician and actually allied health, you know, your registered nurses, respiratory therapists, you know, the whole gambit of healthcare in North America and even worldwide, we're seeing a shortage. And so it's not a unique thing to Lethbridge, and it's certainly not a unique thing in the last few years to Lethbridge, but it is something that we do need to work on. I'm proud to be part of a party that is actively working towards bringing doctors into the South Zone, and they are. So we have 700 doctors coming in. We have 1,800 other allied health professionals that are coming in to Alberta, and that will greatly impact the accessibility of physicians to our constituents. And we need to continue to pursue that. We're opening up extra seats in the university here for nurses. I know that that's happening across Alberta as well. All of those things are pieces to a puzzle. Some things are immediate, some things are going to take time, but I certainly feel that I have, you know, a little bit of the inside scoop on what's been going on over the last number of years, and have something to offer in that way for people.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the province right now is doing all that they can to help with that shortage, or is there something more that they can be doing?
As far as I'm aware, so I'm going to say that I think that they are doing the most that they can. I mean, they're even working with our medical affairs people from a physician perspective, with our registration people that deal with nursing, both RNs and LPNs, to help to make it a little bit quicker for people who are international students or international workers to be able to come here and work, to be able to get licensed to do so. So they're working with, you know, our secondary institutions, as I previously said, to kind of help that, to have some long-term sustainability within our healthcare profession. So I do think that they're doing all that they can as quickly as possible in the circumstances that we have.
Yeah, I know. And the circumstances are grim, unfortunately. Is there something in your mind that AHS and the government can do to make work life for frontline workers better?
Well, I think part of that is to get more frontline workers. Certainly the greatest amount of stress that we're seeing and that I have seen in my frontline workers has been related to staff shortages, you know, having to work extra shifts, having to work double shifts at times. Those are the things that really weigh heavily on, certainly on me as a previous manager. It weighs heavily on the frontline staff, and we need to be doing more to support them that way. And I think that is the aim of the government in bringing in extra people and trying to quicken the registration and licensing processes to bring in people. We are using agency nursing staff to help to alleviate some of that. And so I think those things are probably the greatest things that we can be working on to help with our frontline staff.
Mm-hmm. And from your background in healthcare, do you feel that there are certain areas of the system that are forgotten about that need to receive maybe more attention from the government?
You know, you have to prioritize, right? You have to prioritize. So of course, patients in acute care settings are going to take the priority, and they need to take the priority, because that's where we're seeing, a lot of people in the hospital, they're taking up beds, and we need to help focus on that. I think once we get that settled and we're able to have the staffing to help with those acute care patients that absolutely need or are critical to receive care, I think then it would be time to look at the other allied health professionals that support and work around that, or, our interdisciplinary staff, social workers, speech and language pathologists, our occupational physiotherapists who support that frontline work. And so I think then we have to expand outwards and look at the rest of our allied health teams to see what we can do to help them and support that acute care work.
Okay. Do you see ways to maybe limit wasteful spending and create efficiencies in healthcare?
Yes, I think that probably in my own mind, I have thoughts on that. I am reticent to speak to that as I still am employed by AHS actually, so I'm on leave, so I'm a little reticent to speak to that at this point in time. But certainly there are, let's face it, it's a big organization. It has 100,000 staff. Any large organization, there's going to be places where you can trim back and you can look for efficiencies. It goes without saying. I mean, households are doing it now because of the economy, and there might be 4 of them in the household, and they're looking at ways to trim. So certainly in an organization as large as AHS or any other large organization, there are ways to find efficiencies. We need the will to be able to find those efficiencies. And I think we have it. I think AHS is working really well with Alberta Health and that ministry in order to find those cost savings. And certainly I have, my own thoughts that I can bring to the table as an elected MLA.
Yeah, certainly, of course. Okay, well, we can shift out of healthcare for now. So what feedback have you received the most about the needs of the residents of West Lethbridge?
Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot from people. They are excited for change. They're looking for change. They have brought forward, of course, crime as being one of the things that they're concerned about for both small businesses in the downtown area and personally in just neighborhoods and streets in West Lethbridge. They're concerned about that public safety piece. And so that is an area that is of concern. And then, of course, the economy is another area where people are really struggling. They're struggling to kind of meet the needs of their families. Students have talked to me about their struggles in trying to, be able to eat more than, craft dinner every day at every meal and have some nutrition in their life and be able to also put some gas in their car so they can get to work and all of those needs. And so I think that those are really the 3 things that we could talk about. Would be healthcare for sure, public safety, and then the economy are weighing heavily on people.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And of course, speaking of economy, one of the factors that we hear about here in Lethbridge is the ever-increasing residential property taxes. So do you see a way that the burden of property taxes could shift to be paid by resource royalty income of the province, or is there something else that can be done to lighten the tax load on residential property owners?
Yeah, and I think that the government has done a great job of trying to just generally mitigate some of the poor economic policy that we're seeing come out of the Liberal NDP coalition by doing a lot of different things. I won't speak to what their platform may be in the future. I think that there are other things that they plan on doing, and I don't necessarily want to speak to that. I do think, though, that we have a good relationship with the mayor in Lethbridge, Mayor Blaine Higgin, and there's certainly ways, like those relationships are really very important. They're important to us as a provincial government to have those relationships so that we can work together to help taxes, to help mitigate the expense of things. And so I think that there's future work that can be done.
What about teachers and overcrowding in the classrooms?
Yeah, so I mean, there has been a couple of new schools announced, one for the Catholic School Division, one for the Public School Division. I think both for the West Side. although I could be wrong, but I think both of them are for the west side. Of course, it's a fast-growing part of Lethbridge with many, many young families. There's children. If you walk down the streets of West Lethbridge, on that side of the river, there's a lot of children walking around. So, so that would be really helpful. It is an area of concern, and it's an area that needs to be looked at. I think that there's a lot of support that needs to be offered to our frontline educators. The requirement for them right now is not just to be teachers, but to be counselors, mental health workers, and the list goes on, nurses and all kinds of things that it seems like the expectation of them is. And what would really be nice would be to work with them, to work with the local board, to work with the frontline workers, find out what they would like to see changed, and maybe offer some different kinds of supports so that educators can become educators again, and students can receive additional supports from other professionals that are actually, go to school, have the degrees, and are meant to support those students to help them. One of the things that I would like to do is to be seen as a collaborator. And we need to do a little, I would want to do some collaboration. So it's great for me to sit here and say, well, these are my ideas about what should happen in education. But what are the educators' ideas about what should happen in education? What are their thoughts? What is their out-of-the-box thinking? How can we innovate together to help solve some of those concerns that frontline teachers are experiencing so that we can come up with a plan together? That's part of that positive change, is working together, working with the stakeholders, working with frontline workers, so that we can come up with ideas together that will actually help. At the end, it's going to help our frontline staff. It's also going to help those, youth that are in our schools, because that's really the end goal, is to make sure that they're the ones that are supported to get the best education they can. So we have, Albertans who are growing up, going on into school or trades or whatever they decide to do, opening up businesses that are set up for success to be able to do those things.
Okay, Cheryl, you had mentioned once before that drugs being the issue, crime being the issue. So do you feel that there's a solution to addressing drug use and the issues of addiction within Lethbridge?
Yeah, I do. I feel for people that have addiction. I feel for the families. I have some, and we don't have the time to discuss here, but I have some personal lived experience with having a close family member that had that or that has that. And I feel like the UCP are exactly on the right track with that. We need to help people get out of that addiction cycle. This is not the way that they want to live their life. And the way that they're looking at providing services that help to get people out of that addiction cycle, and then to give them the supports that they need to start moving forward, give them jobs, give them the schooling that they need, the opportunity to relearn skills so that they can actually move from where they are to become who they really want to become. There is not one addict I know that really, really wants to be an addict. They really do want to get out of that. And I've met many of them as a registered nurse, and certainly have seen them come through my rural ERs. It is a tragedy. We should not continue. We cannot enable that kind of thing to continue by freely giving drugs, by freely allowing them to just be honestly so just devastated by that illness. And so the opportunity that we have to help people in a different way to recover, to offer wraparound services, to give them a place to stay, not for 6 months or 12 months, for as long as they need, to make it so that it's free of charge to them, something that has never happened before, but this will be free of charge for people to have that opportunity. And that's the one side of it, to be able to address and help people to get well. The other piece of it is to support our police. We need to support our police to be able to ensure that we're doing the one piece, which is the kind of the caring piece, and then the other piece is keeping public safe, and that is also as important. People, families, individuals, we need to be able to catch a bus at night and know that we're safe. We need to be able to walk down the street and not be worried about it, or leave our homes for vacation and not be worried that someone's going to break into them. These are all things that we need to do. And so supporting our police is important, and then supporting those who suffer from mental health and addictions in a much broader way that allows them to recover and to move forward with their life in a positive way.
There's, of course, a lot of rhetoric and possibly a lot of division based on opinions of certain issues, a lot of divisiveness. So how do you feel that you could maybe bridge the gap to unify voters?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to that, kind of my positive change and collaboration. I'm not going to use fear as a way to motivate people or get votes. It's just not in my wheelhouse. I don't want to divide people or segregate them. I want people to come together to know that I'm available for everyone. I'm going to return your phone call. My office door is open. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. It doesn't have to be what I believe. It doesn't have to be the things that I feel a certain way about. It has to be that I represent all of Lethbridge West. It has to be that I represent the people of Lethbridge West as a whole. And I trust that people are smart enough to be able to see that genuineness, and that I'm going to be a hard worker, and I'm going to take their concerns up to the legislature if I have the opportunity to represent them.
Cheryl, looks like we are out of time, but thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for allowing me the time with you.
Absolutely. Cheryl Seaborn is the UCP candidate for West Lethbridge, running in the provincial election on May the 29th.
For a lot of Canadian small business owners, the years of sleepless nights and supposed to pay off with a family legacy and have some profits at the end of the day. This may be one reason why support local programs is so important right now. Buy and support local businesses all over the place. With inflation, taxes, input costs all on the increase, small business owners, especially here in southern Alberta and across the country, are still working to remain viable and hopefully profitable. Now, one small business innovation is looking to be cashless, but maybe in a bit of a different way than you may imagine. Joining us today to talk about a different style of business and payment is John Porter of Barter Pay, and he joins us now from Hamilton, Ontario. John, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you so much for having me on, Hal. Really appreciate being here.
You bet. Now, before we get into your company's efforts to grow and provide for you and your family, I wanted to ask you about what you've seen in the business landscape and how it may have changed over the last 5 years here in Canada.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems to me that especially the last 3 years, for sure, businesses have really had to struggle through this pandemic, so to speak. It's not been easy for them. They've had to pivot in many ways. I think that going digital, especially, and being able to run transactions through e-commerce has been a huge thing. But it's been a real struggle. I mean, it's been really difficult. It's not easy on the best of days to launch and grow a small business, but definitely the last 3 years has proven to be quite difficult. But businesses are business owners, entrepreneurs are very innovative. They're resilient. They persevere, and they make it through. So I think that's the silver lining in all of this, is that that's the type of people that we're dealing with, right? They push through these tough walls, and they break through and make things happen. So yeah, we're excited for that.
I've owned a couple of businesses myself, and I got to tell you, it's feast or famine. We're in the black, and then all of a sudden you deep into the red. And it's like, oh, don't let the highs get too high and the lows too low. And it's kind of a roller coaster ride, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's it's never a dull moment. And like you said, at one moment you're laughing and the next moment you're crying. So it's one night you're sleeping well, the next night you're hardly sleeping at all. So yeah, kudos to these small businesses across the country, and they're the lifeblood and the backbone of the economy, right? So we have to really appreciate what they've been doing and how they've persevered.
John, why don't you describe how Barter Pay actually works?
Yeah, so Barter Pay, what we are really is a community impact business that helps thousands of businesses across the country get the things that they need without having to necessarily use money, right? They can just pay for those things using their own goods and services. And we know that bartering in of itself is the oldest form of commerce. It's how business was really invented. But for two businesses to enter into a fair trade, each side has to want what the other person has at the same time and at the same value. It's actually called the coincidence of wants, believe it or not. And so it's very difficult for these direct barters to line up. They do happen, but it's hard for them to line up. And so that's kind of one problem that we saw in the small business space. The other problem that we kind of looked at was this idea of spare capacity. And so for spare capacity is defined for, service-based businesses as unsold time and space. And for product-based businesses, that would be like idle inventory sitting on the shelves, right, or in the warehouse. So when we looked at those two problems, we thought, hey, maybe we could build a platform that solves this. And so we literally sold our farm back in 2013, built software. And now we've got this platform where a business can open an account with Barter Pay. They can offer up their goods or services, their spare capacity to the marketplace. In exchange, they earn barter credits, and one barter credit equals $1 Canadian for valuation purposes. And so now they offer up this spare capacity, they earn these barter credits. And the real special part, Hal, is that instead of having to use those barter credits with the people and the businesses that acquired their good or service, they can take that newly earned revenue stream that doesn't expire now, and they can go barter and trade with anybody in the entire ecosystem. So no longer is it this kind of one-to-one bartering conundrum. It's like this one-to-many ecosystem all working together to monetize all that spare capacity in real time and to get back things for those businesses that they need to boost their bottom line and conserve cash. So that's kind of how the bartering system, how barter pay system works. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, yeah, because in the old days when it came to bartering, especially for services, I would, let's say, as a professional broadcast journalist, somebody would bring me on to, let's say, maybe MC a wedding or a special business function in exchange and say, okay, and I want you to help me build my fence. You know, but that's the one-on-one, but now you say it's totally different. It goes more into a pool, right? So how did you really come up with the idea, and what kind of startup capital did you need to get rolling?
So back in, I didn't really come up with the idea. It's been going on in the U.S. market for probably over 50 years now, bartering systems. So I actually just brought it into Canada back in the late 90s. In 1997, I was heading to Waterloo University to be a civil engineer, and started saving up some money for school and worked a summer job that connected me to a fella who was in the barter business in Toronto. I actually ended up bringing a brand into Canada. And it was way too early to the marketplace. I mean, it was, the entrepreneur wasn't ready for it. Businesses weren't ready for it. They only, it was cash, check, Visa, MasterCard. Technology wasn't there. And so, we just kind of persevered through it and cold calling, knocking on doors, really just garnering support, one business at a time. And so we just built it, stayed in it long enough. So that was back, like I said, it was 27 years ago this fall that we actually launched the barter payment space. And it wasn't until 2018 that we became barter pay in May of 2018.
So have governments given you a rough time, whether provincial or federal governments? They want their cut as well in the form of taxes.
Absolutely, yeah. They haven't given us a hard time. Actually, they've been, they've got. It's not really regulated, but at the end of the day, there's a definition of barter credits, in the Tax Act that say that they just need to be accounted for one. And for a business, it's really a non-issue because they're claiming the barter credits as revenue, but they're also claiming the barter credits as an expense. So it's kind of a net zero anyways. But yeah, it's just a formality that kind of makes it legal, so to speak. Yeah.
Now, you've had franchises in Medicine Hat and Lethbridge here in southern Alberta. Those of us here in this part of the province, many of us are quite independent in our way of thinking, and we have a lot of small businesses. Why do you think your company and the way of doing business is so popular, not only here in Alberta, but where you are in Ontario and the rest of the country?
Well, I think it's popular because in and of itself, regardless of what's gone on the last 3 years in the world, I think in and of itself, it's a sound concept. I mean, no business wants to have idle inventory or downtime that's not being monetized. So the ability and the allure for businesses is that they can actually plug themselves into this platform and have a whole new marketing team, so to speak, marketing their business back out to this barter economy, right? So we also we pair every business that joins with a real life barter coach that helps manage their activity, helps promote their business out to the network, helps them to take those newly earned barter credits and plug them into areas where they would normally have written a check, which is a boost to their bottom line. So it gives them exposure to new markets. It conserves cash. It boosts profits. I mean, so there's so many reasons why businesses would want to be connected to a barter economy. And now that we've launched our Barter Pay It Forward Foundation, the charitable aspect of what we do, I think that's a big part of why businesses want to participate as well.
So, John, do you have any notable real-life examples of barter deals in your system that you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just in general, we've got a number of different sort of sectors that are sort of major sectors that barter with us, whether it's health and wellness, construction and trades, media and entertainment, travel and tourism, restaurants, business-related services. But yeah, so we've had like a restaurant in Hamilton, for example, was looking for a new sign for their restaurant, and they went out and got a few quotes. They all came in around $5,000, right? And normally before they met barter pay, they would have just chosen a quote, wrote the check for $5,000, and that it kind of ends there. But instead, they made the smart choice to join barter pay. We ended up selling off about $5,000 worth of their gift cards out to our network within the first couple of weeks. So they banked up $5,000 in barter credits, and then they used those barter credits with a sign company in Burlington to replace that cash expenditure. So essentially, instead of $5,000 cash leaving the bank to get their sign, it was only $5,000 worth of gift cards that represents new business incrementally coming back in their door at their food cost, which is like 30-40 cents on the dollar. So it's a huge cash savings. And again, those gift cards went out to people who had never been at that restaurant before either. So it's a marketing play as well. Another sort of bigger transaction that we've been working on actually is based in Alberta. There's a retailer there that we've been working with that has about 100 locations across Canada, and they've leveraged barter pay to move a whole bunch of idle inventory that's brand new product, but just too much of it. And so we've sold about $500,000 with their inventory for them at the full regular retail rate. They banked those barter credits into their account, and then they're flipping those barter credits to replace an expense that's coming down the pipeline here, which is putting a new digital pricing system in their retail locations as a pilot program. So again, instead of having to cut a check for $500,000 out of the bank and then hope that works, they're just switching $500,000 worth of idle inventory for that system by leveraging the barter pay ecosystem.
So do you think the impact to businesses' bottom line is what makes barter pay so attractive for a lot of business owners?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the cash savings that they can experience as a result of bartering, that boost to the bottom line, that exposure to new markets, being able to donate barter credits to charity. So being able to make a community impact without having to dip into cash flow, being able to incentivize their employees and offer employee not discounts, but employee incentives. Being able to appreciate their best customers without having to use cash, but leveraging the barter credits to get things like restaurant coupons or gift cards or golf certificates or whatever. They can pass those out. So there's lots of ways to leverage the barter economy for a small business to really create more impact in their community and to just boost their bottom line and make their business grow.
So let me ask you something. How are you making money? Or do you have deals set up with the banks? Maybe they, you can do a barter pay for exchange for the mortgage payment, or maybe when it comes to grocery stores with food and some of the gas retailers to pay for your gas. So I mean, how are you working this to your advantage as well? For you and your family?
So we make, for sure. Yeah, we make money 3 different ways. There's a one-time activation fee. It's $99. Used to be $500. We kind of lowered it in March of 2020 when things went sideways there. So just to make it very affordable for small businesses, it's $99 to join. We charge a monthly fee after 6 months of $25, but we give, there's no contract or anything like that. We want to make sure that there's the right fit for these businesses joining, and that there's value that they're receiving for paying for a fee, right? A marketing fee of $25 a month. The way we actually make money though, Hal, is purely based on a performance commission. So it's only paid when it's working. And how that works, it's a 12.5% commission. And the way it works is it's only paid when a business is utilizing their barter credits. So back to that restaurant example, when we help them sell the $5,000 worth of gift cards into the system, they bank those barter credits in their account. There was no commission paid at that point. We had to do the second half of our job, which arguably is the most important half, and help them use those barter credits to replace that sign expense. And at that point, we got our commission, 30 days later on the monthly statement. So it's almost like the more they pay us in commission, the more they've saved throughout the year in cash, right? So it's kind of, our interests are all aligned.
So John, how do you really see your business expanding into the future? Let's talk about that potential.
Yeah, well, the last 3 years has really made bartering a lot more mainstream. It's never been more Googled in the last 3 years, right? So we're pretty grateful and blessed and fortunate and honored really to have this opportunity to really take something that we've been working on for a quarter century and really scale it up across the country. Right now we're sitting just shy of 4,000 businesses in the platform, and we just sense that over the next few years, we're going to be exploding up to 100,000 and then on to 200,000, maybe 250,000 businesses across the country in all the different, small cities, big cities, really much weaving together the entire country with a barter pay presence. So I think, we're in the business that the bigger we get, the more attractive it is for more businesses to join because there's more nodes in the network, right? So we only see it getting better from here and bigger, which makes it better for all the participants. So we're pretty excited about that in a big way.
Rising cost of living has impacted so many of us, individuals and business owners, inflation just under 6%. John, can you talk about how these small business owners you're working with are still making a go of it despite the increased costs?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to what I talked about before, just the perseverance. I mean, every business that starts up, every business owner starts with that dream, right? And I think that, there are a lot of businesses that do fail. That's never going to, that stat's never going to really change. But the ones that are, making it are in it because of the dream that they have to really make an impact and to create a lifestyle for themselves and to help, employ people, that sort of thing. And so I think that the perseverance is a big part of it, and just wanting to grow that business, having the freedom to do what they want to do. It's hard to if you're a true blue entrepreneur, it's hard to take that out of somebody. So, but I think that being innovative and iterating their business and latching onto new things and trying new things, is not just doing it just because it's always been done that way. But trying new things is huge, and barter pay plays right into that. I think that businesses that choose to adopt new ways of doing business and innovation are the ones that are gonna make it in the long run.
You mentioned perseverance. Like I said before, I've owned a couple of businesses myself, and I got to tell you, perseverance was key. But I've never worked harder in my life than when I had my own business. Some people think, "Oh, you're self-employed; it's a piece of cake; it's really easy." Nothing could be further from the truth, right, John?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I joke and say, when you start a business, you get to choose which 18 hours a day you get to work. And that's the truth. It's really difficult. It's not easy. Anybody who's thinking about starting a small business, you got to go into it knowing that it's not easy. It's gonna be very, very difficult. You might see some odd successes out there that just kind of happen overnight, but really, even barter pay is going to be, an overnight success, 30 years in the making, right? So that's the mindset that everybody has to have going in. That you gotta be in it for the long game and not focus on the money. Focus on the solution. Focus on delivering a quality solution to people and helping create transformations. Not just getting followers or getting hype or whatever, right? It's about actually helping people transform the way they can actually, either live or do business. Yeah.
John Porter of Barter Pay, thanks so much for joining us today from Hamilton, Ontario.
Thank you, Hal. Really appreciate you having me on.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.